The brother of Jesus contrasted two very different kinds of wisdom. On the one hand, he said there is a wisdom that comes from above that is spiritual, but on the other, there is a very earthbound and earthly wisdom which is unspiritual. Uh, it's the sort of distinction that Solomon is wrestling with here as he allows his focus to drop below the horizons of this age. He realizes that actually the only wisdom that he's left with now is a wisdom that is imprisoned under the sun, that for all its rigor and intellectual creativity and strength, it's actually just limited in its reach. As he's begun to realize that meaning, purpose, significance is never going to be found in his pursuit of pleasure, he begins to wonder, actually, if he could find that fulfillment in philosophy, in the academy, in thinking through and appreciating ideas and arguments and worldviews, finding the answers to life's big questions. We might talk of people who really understand how the world works and how to make it work for them. Is that where the meaning of life can be found? Well, certainly the old Greek philosophers thought so. It was quite self-serving in a way, given that they were philosophers, but they had this idea that real life, substantial life, was the life of the mind, that the body was just almost an unfortunate appendage, something that you needed to carry the mind around. But really, their hope was that eventually, somehow, they would be able to transcend the body or maybe just get rid of it and live a purely intellectual life. Well, were they right? Well, again, you've got to appreciate how nuanced Solomon is as he reflects on his pursuit of meaning and on the aspects of that pursuit that took him into the life of the mind, that took him into philosophy. And he's not willing to disregard this wisdom, even earthly wisdom, as an irrelevance. Wisdom, he said, it might not be great, but at least it's better than folly, right? It's better to engage with the world and try to figure it out than it is to disengage from it, to try to escape it, to ignore the world, spend your time just watching daytime TV or box sets and eating junk food and taking solace in the idea that, well, if nothing matters, what's the point in doing anything? Or worse, to say that if nothing matters, then actually it really doesn't matter how I live in the end, how I treat people or what I pursue. Why not be manipulative and exploitative? Like, why not be selfish? Why not live as if nothing and no one matters? Like, why not just see everyone and everything as a means to the end of my own personal fulfillment, whatever that might look like? Now, Solomon says, no, come on. Wisdom, even earthly and earthbound wisdom, is better than madness and folly, just as light is better than the darkness. But, and this is important, but he says, I came to realize that the same fate overtakes us all, whether we live with wisdom or folly, whether we engage or disengage. See, Solomon's caught in a trap. He wants to say, on the one hand, that it matters how you live, but he isn't sure he can really say why, because at the end of the day, whether you're a brilliant scholar or philosopher, whether you are someone who understands the world and engages in it, who grows and develops and betters themselves and betters the world in some way, or whether your life is lived without a plan, without any clue about who you are or where you're going or what you're doing, if you live completely for selfish and ignoble purposes, either way, you're going to die. And that is the great non-negotiable of life. And that's the thing that is making Solomon reevaluate everything. He's about to die. And his wisdom and his educational achievements and his intellectual stimulation and his philosophical prowess, that's not going to change the fact that he's going to die and that all of this is actually going to die with him. And the question then that he's overwhelmed by is, well, what's been the point of it all? Like, everything that I've turned my mind to, why did any of it matter? Like, what was the point of becoming so learned, of living wisely, of living in a way that's been trying to make a difference? What's the point of everything that I've achieved when now at the end of it all, I'm going to die? I'm going to lose everything I've learned, every insight I've had, every brilliant thought, every perception. It all turns to dust with me. So really, what do I gain from being wise? What difference did it make when actually, whether I had been wise or foolish, I would still end up here on the edge of the grave? It was Woody Allen again. He said, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it by not dying. But it isn't just the inevitability of death that causes Solomon such angst. It's the fact that when you die, you will be forgotten. You don't even live on, in some way that's about your, being remembered by other people. None of us even remember our great grandparents, and they meant something to us. But what if there was a different wisdom? What about that other wisdom that James talked about? The wisdom that came to us from above, a wisdom that came to us from above the sun, a wisdom that could even navigate death. What if there was a way that meant that it really did matter how I lived? That it really did count for something, not just under the sun, but above and beyond it too. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be a wisdom worth taking hold of?